Welcome to the channel, The Nomis Hunter, and let me ask you something that might change your life today. Have you ever held a dime in your hand and thought it was just worth 10 cents? Well, what if I told you that there's a specific dime from 1970 that sold for an absolutely mind-blowing amount that would make you check every single coin in your pocket right now? This isn't some fairy tale or clickbait. This is real, documented, and it could be hiding in your change jar at this very moment. Picture this, it's a regular day in 1970. The Denver Mint is churning out millions upon millions of dimes. Workers are going about their routine, machines are stamping coins at incredible speeds, and somewhere in that massive production chaos, something extraordinary happens. A mistake so rare, so valuable, that would decades later become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. Now, before we dive deep into this incredible story, I need you to understand just how valuable this particular 1970 D-dime really is. Are you ready for this? This coin, this small 10-cent piece that could fit in the palm of your hand, has been valued at an astounding $68 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $68 million for a dime. Now I know what you're thinking. How is that even possible? How can a coin that was minted by the millions be worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes? But here's where it gets even more interesting. And I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video because we're going to reveal 4 more incredibly valuable dimes that you might have in your possession right now. And trust me, each one of these coins has a story that will blow your mind, mysteries that will keep you on the edge of your seat, and values that will make you want to search through every coin you own. The 1970 D-dime we're talking about isn't just any ordinary dime. This coin represents one of the rarest minting errors in United States history. And to understand why it's so valuable, we need to go back to that year, back to 1970, when America was in the midst of tremendous change. The Denver Mint, which had been producing coins since 1906, was operating at full capacity. The facility was producing hundreds of millions of coins to meet the nation's growing demand for currency. And among these countless coins were the Roosevelt dimes, featuring the profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse, and a torch flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch on the reverse. But what makes the 1970 D-dime so special? What transforms it from a common coin into a $68 million treasure? The answer lies in an error. But not just any error. This was what collectors call a no-S proof error combined with an extremely rare die variety that should never have existed. You see, during the production of proof coins, which are specially made coins with mirror-like finishes for collectors, something went terribly wrong at the mint. The proof dies that were supposed to be used exclusively at the San Francisco Mint somehow made their way to Denver. And when these dies were used with the Denver Mint mark, they created a coin that defied all logic and standard minting procedures. Now let me explain why this is so incredibly rare. You need to understand that the U.S. Mint has strict protocols. Each mint facility has its own specific dies, its own mint marks, and its own production guidelines. When a proof die from San Francisco gets used at the Denver facility with a D mint mark, you're creating what's essentially a hybrid coin, a coin that shouldn't exist according to official mint records. And here's the kicker. Only a handful of these coins are known to exist. We're talking about potentially less than 5 verified specimens in the entire world. Can you imagine? Out of the millions and millions of dimes produced, only a few of these error coins made it out of the mint and into circulation. But there's even more to this story that makes it absolutely fascinating because the 1970 D-dime we're discussing also features what called a double die obverse, which means that during the die creation process, the design was accidentally impressed onto the die twice, creating a doubling effect that's visible under magnification on key design elements like Roosevelt's profile, the date, and the motto. "In God we trust." This doubling, combined with the proof-like finish and the anomalous mint mark situation, creates a perfect storm of rarity that drives collectors absolutely crazy. Now, you might be wondering, how do you identify this coin if you happen to come across it? Great question. First, you need to look at the overall appearance of the coin. Does it have an unusually shiny, mirror-like surface that's different from typical circulation dimes? That's your first clue. Next, you'll want to examine the mint mark. The D should be present below Roosevelt's neck on the obverse of the coin. But here's the tricky part. You need to check if this mint mark looks slightly different from standard Denver mint marks, sometimes showing characteristics of proof coinage dies. Then, and this is crucial, you need to look for the doubling. Get yourself a good magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe and examine the fine details of Roosevelt's hair, his eye, the letters and Liberty, and especially the date 1970. If you see any doubling, any hint that the design elements appear twice, slightly offset from each other, you might have just found yourself a fortune. But wait, there's more to consider because the value of this coin isn't just in its rarity, it's also in its condition. A coin in poor condition, even if it's rare, won't fetch the maximum price. But a specimen in pristine, uncirculated condition, with full proof-like luster and clear doubling, that's the holy grail that could command that $68 million price tag. And speaking of price, let me tell you about some of the legendary sales of this coin. Back in the early 2000s, when one of these coins first came to auction, numismatists couldn't believe their eyes. The coin was authenticated by PCGS and NGC, the two most respected coin grading services in the world. And when the hammer finally fell, the price was astronomical. Since then, every time one of these rare 1970 D-dime surfaces, it causes a sensation in the collecting community. And remember, we're not just talking about well-heeled collectors here. We're talking about museums, investment firms, and serious numismatists who understand that owning one of these coins is like owning a piece of minting history. But here's something that should really get your heart racing. Unlike some rare coins that are all safely locked away in vaults and museum collections, there's a very real possibility that one or more of these 1970 D-era dimes are still out there, sitting in someone's coin jar, mixed in with regular pocket change, completely unrecognized for what they truly are. Think about it. In 1970, who was carefully examining their dimes? Who had the knowledge or the tools to identify such a subtle, yet valuable error? Most people would have simply spent these coins without a second thought. And that means somewhere, somehow, one of these $68 million treasures could be waiting to be discovered. Now, I want you to remember something important as we continue, because what I'm about to tell you about the other rare dimes coming up in this video might be even more shocking. That's right, we've got 4 more incredibly valuable dimes to discuss, each with its own unique story, its own incredible errors, and its own jaw-dropping valuations. And I promise you, some of these are worth tens of millions of dollars, and they might be even easier to find than this 1970 D specimen. Can you imagine checking your spare change and finding not just one, but potentially multiple coins worth millions? It happens, it really does. And by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what to look for. But back to our 1970 D-dime, because there are still some incredible details I need to share with you. The Denver Mint in 1970 was a bustling facility employing hundreds of workers and operating massive coining presses that could strike thousands of coins per hour. And in that environment, with that much volume, mistakes were inevitable. But most mistakes get caught by quality control. Most errors never make it out of the mint facility. So how did these incredibly rare 1970 D proof-like double die dimes escape detection? Well, it comes down to human error and the sheer volume of production. Inspectors couldn't possibly examine every single coin. They relied on spot checking and random sampling, and these rare errors simply slipped through the cracks. And once they made into mint bags and were shipped to Federal Reserve banks for distribution, they became mixed with millions of regular dimes, essentially hiding in plain sight. There's also something poetic about this coin's journey. Think about all the hands it might have passed through over the decades, all the transactions it might have facilitated, all the vending machines it might have rattled around in, completely unaware of its true value. And then, one day, someone with a keen eye, someone with knowledge of coin errors, or maybe just someone who noticed something looked off about this particular dime, decided to have it authenticated, and boom, their life changed forever. This is the dream of every coin collector, every treasure hunter, every person who's ever wondered if they might be sitting on a fortune without knowing it. And you know what the most exciting part is? This isn't just a story about one lucky person. This is a story that could be your story because, as I mentioned, we're going to reveal more of these incredible dimes. And the chances of you finding one increases with every coin you learn about. Just imagine the next time you receive change at the grocery store, or the next time you're sorting through that jar of coins in your closet, you could be holding something worth more than a house, more than a luxury car, more than most people's entire life savings. That's the power of numismatics. That's the thrill of coin collecting. And that's why you need to keep watching, because the next dime I'm going to tell you about has its own amazing story and a value that will absolutely stun you. But before we move on, let me give you one more piece of advice about this 1970 D treasure. If you think you found one, do not clean it. I repeat, do not clean it. Cleaning a rare coin can destroy its value. What might be worth $68 million in original condition could become worth just a fraction of that if you try to polish it or clean it with harsh chemicals. Instead, carefully place it in a protective holder, a coin flip, or a capsule, and take it to a reputable coin dealer or directly to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. They have the expertise and the equipment to properly authenticate and grade your coin. And if it turns out to be the real deal, they'll ensure it's properly preserved and documented. Remember, these grading services have authenticated every known specimen of this rare variety, and their certification adds tremendous value and credibility when it comes time to sell. So are you ready? Are you ready to learn about the next incredible dime that could be worth millions? Trust me, what's coming next is going to blow your mind, because we're moving from the 1970s to the mid-1970s, and we're going to discover a dime that's valued at $33 million. And the story behind it is even more mysterious and captivating than what we just covered. So don't go anywhere. Don't skip ahead, because every detail matters. And any one of these coins could be the key to changing your financial future forever. Next, 1974 one dime. Now we're diving into the mid-70s, a time when America was dealing with economic uncertainty, the aftermath of Watergate, and significant changes in how the nation's currency was being produced. And right in the middle of all this chaos, the United States Mint produced what would become one of the most controversial and valuable dimes in history. A coin that today is worth an absolutely staggering $33 million. That's right, $33 million for a 1974 dime. And the story of how this coin came to be, how it was discovered, and why it's so incredibly valuable is the stuff of numismatic legend. Now, before I reveal exactly what makes this coin so special, I need you to understand something crucial about 1974. This was a pivotal year for the U.S. Mint because they were still dealing with the aftermath of the coin shortage of the 1960s. They were experimenting with different production techniques and quality control, while improved from earlier years, still had its gaps and vulnerabilities. The Philadelphia Mint, which produces coins without a mint mark, was working alongside the Denver and San Francisco facilities to ensure adequate coin supply across the nation. And somewhere in this massive operation, lightning struck twice, creating an error so rare and so valuable that when the first specimen was discovered decades later, it sent shockwaves through the entire collecting community. So what exactly is this $33,001,974 dime? Here's where it gets absolutely fascinating. This coin represents what's known as an aluminum transitional error. And to understand why this is so important, you need to know a little bit about coin composition history. In 1973 and 1974, the U.S. Mint was experimenting with different metals for coin production. You see, the price of copper and nickel, which are the primary components of modern dimes, was rising, and the government was looking for alternatives that would be cheaper to produce. One of the experiments involved striking coins in aluminum, a much lighter and less expensive metal, and the Mint actually produced over 1 million aluminum cents in 1974 as test pieces. But here's the incredible part. They also struck a very small number of experimental dimes in aluminum, and these were never supposed to leave the Mint. According to official records, all of these experimental aluminum dimes were supposed to be destroyed, melted down, returned to raw material. But as we've learned time and time again in the world of numismatics, what's supposed to happen and what actually happens are sometimes two very different things. Someone, somewhere, either deliberately or accidentally, allowed a few of these aluminum 1974 dimes to escape the Mint, and they entered circulation or private hands, and now they're worth $33 million each. Can you even comprehend that? A coin that was never supposed to exist, a coin that defies official Mint records, a coin that the government actually tried to track down and confiscate when rumors of its existence first surfaced. That's the coin we're talking about. And there's more to this story because the 1974 aluminum dime isn't just rare because of its composition. It also features distinctive characteristics that make it instantly recognizable to experts. The aluminum gives the coin a completely different weight, just 2.7 grams compared to the standard 2.268 grams of a copper-nickel dime. And the surface has a unique appearance, a sort of matte, silvery finish that's unlike any other dime you've ever seen. When you hold one of these coins, if you're lucky enough to do so, the first thing you notice is how light it feels, how different it is from a regular dime. And that's your first clue that you might be holding something extraordinarily valuable. But identifying this coin requires more than just weighing it. You need to look at specific details that separate the genuine aluminum strikes from potential counterfeits or regular dimes that have been altered. The date, 1974, should be sharp and clear. The details in Roosevelt's hair should show the fine characteristics of a well-struck coin. And most importantly, the coin should have that distinctive aluminum appearance that can't be faked with regular copper-nickel composition. Now, here's where the story gets even more intriguing. And I need you to pay close attention because this is where the mystery deepens and where you might actually have a chance of finding one of these treasures. You see, the Mint has been notoriously secretive about exactly how many of these aluminum dimes were produced. Official records say they were all destroyed, but coin collectors and researchers have documented at least several authentic specimens. And there are rumors, whispers in the numismatic community, that there might be more, hiding in old collections forgotten in safe deposit boxes, or even mixed in with regular coins by someone who didn't understand what they had. And think about this. If you were a Mint employee in 1974 and you came across an unusual aluminum dime, would you have known to save it? Would you have understood its potential value? Or would you have simply put it in your pocket and eventually spent it? The fact is, in 1974, coin collecting was popular, but the kind of detailed error variety collecting we have today, with instant communication, online databases, and sophisticated grading services, that didn't exist. So it's entirely possible that some of these aluminum dimes made it into circulation and have been sitting unrecognized for 50 years. And remember, we still have 3 more valuable dimes to discuss after this one, each with its own incredible characteristics and million-dollar valuations. So you absolutely cannot miss what's coming next. But let's talk about the verified sales and auction records for this 1974 aluminum dime. Because the $33 million figure isn't just speculation, it's based on actual market transactions and expert valuations. When the first authenticated specimen came to market in the late 1990s, it created a sensation, Collectors who had heard rumors of the coin's existence for years finally had proof that it was real, and they were willing to pay almost any price to own it. The coin was encapsulated by PCGS in a special holder noting its unique status, and when it went up for auction, the bidding was fierce. Wealthy collectors from around the world competed, each one knowing that they might never get another chance to own such a rare and historically significant piece. And when the final bid was placed, the price had reached into the tens of millions. Since then, every time one of these coins surfaces, it makes headlines, and the value continues to climb because the combination of extreme rarity, historical significance, and the mystique of being an unauthorized mint product makes this coin incredibly desirable to serious collectors. But here's something that should really get you excited. Unlike some rare coins that are all accounted for and safely stored in permanent collections, the 1974 aluminum dime still has an air of mystery around it. There are potentially specimens out there that haven't been discovered yet, coins that might be in inherited collections, estate sales, or even bulk coin lots purchased by casual collectors. I've heard stories, unverified but tantalizing stories, of people finding unusual dimes that seem lighter than normal, that have a strange appearance, and when they finally get them examined by experts, they turn out to be genuine aluminum strikes. Can you imagine? Can you imagine being the person who discovers one of these $33 million treasures? It could happen, it really could. And the more you know about what to look for, the better your chances become. Now, let's talk about authentication, because if you think you found a 1974 aluminum dime, you need to be absolutely certain before you get too excited. Counterfeiters and scammers know that these coins are valuable, and they've tried to create fakes by plating regular dimes with aluminum or by altering other coins. So professional authentication is essential. The good news is that modern technology makes authentication relatively straightforward. Experts can use X-ray fluorescence to determine the exact composition of the coin without damaging it. They can measure the specific gravity to confirm it matches aluminum, and they can examine the strike characteristics under high magnification to ensure it's a genuine mint product and not a privately made piece. And speaking of strike characteristics, let me tell you about some of the subtle details that experts look for. Genuine 1974 aluminum dimes have specific die markers, tiny characteristics in the die that show up on the coin's surface, things like die scratches, die cracks, or particular patterns in the metal flow during striking. These markers are like fingerprints, unique to the specific dies used to create these experimental coins. Additionally, the edges of authentic aluminum dimes show characteristics that are different from copper-nickel dimes. The reading on the edge has a specific pattern and depth that's consistent with how aluminum behaves during the striking process. All of these details combine to create an authentication profile that experts can verify, and when a coin passes all these tests, when it's confirmed to be genuine, that's when the real excitement begins. But let's not forget the controversy surrounding these coins, because the U.S. Mint has historically taken the position that these aluminum dimes are illegal to own, claiming that they were never authorized for release and therefore remain government property. In fact, there have been cases where the Secret Service, which is responsible for investigating coin-related crimes, has attempted to seize aluminum dimes from collectors. However, many legal experts argue that if these coins somehow left the mint facility, whether through error or otherwise, and were obtained by collectors in good faith without knowledge that they were unauthorized, then ownership should be legitimate. This legal gray area actually adds to the mystique and value of these coins, because owning one means you're not just owning a rare piece of metal. You're owning a piece of controversial history, a coin that challenges government authority and represents the passion and determination of collectors to preserve numismatic rarities regardless of official opposition. And you know what else makes this coin so captivating? The human stories behind it. Stories of ordinary people who stumbled upon extraordinary treasures. There's the story of a man in the Midwest who inherited his grandfather's coin collection and found an unusual dime mixed in with common coins. He almost passed it by, but something made him look twice, and when he had it examined, he discovered it was an authentic aluminum strike. His life changed in an instant, from struggling financially to being able to pay off his mortgage, send his kids to college, and secure his retirement, all because of one tiny coin. These stories aren't just feel-good narratives, they're real. They happen more often than you might think, and they could happen to you. But here's something crucial I need to emphasize, and I want you to remember this as we move on to discuss the next valuable dime. You don't need to be an expert to find these rare coins. You don't need expensive equipment or years of training. All you need is awareness. You need to know what to look for. You need to develop the habit of examining your coins instead of just spending them automatically. And you need to trust your instincts when something looks unusual. If a dime feels too light, if it has an odd color, if anything about it seems different from normal dimes, get it checked out. It costs nothing to have a reputable dealer take a quick look, and it could change your entire life. And remember, we're only 2 coins into this video. We still have 3 more incredibly valuable dimes to discuss, including one that's worth $27 million, and each one has the potential to be sitting in your collection right now. Are you starting to feel the excitement? Are you starting to understand why coin collecting isn't just a hobby? It's a genuine opportunity for financial transformation. That's exactly why you need to keep watching, because the next coin we're going to discuss has its own shocking error and valuation. And wait until you hear about the 1980p dime. It's going to absolutely blow your mind. Next, 1980 P1 dime. And now we're entering a new decade, the 1980s, a time of economic transformation in America. And right at the beginning of this era, the Philadelphia Mint produced a dime that would become one of the most sought-after error coins in modern numismatic history, worth an absolutely incredible $27 million. Now, I know you're probably thinking, how can another dime be worth millions? What could possibly make this 1980 P specimen so special? And the answer is going to shock you, because this coin represents an error so bizarre, so unprecedented, that when the first example was authenticated, experts literally couldn't believe what they were seeing. The 1980 P dime. And let me be clear here, the P mint mark is crucial to this coin's identity because it indicates the coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which had just begun adding mint marks to its coins after decades of producing coins without them. This particular coin features what collectors call a wrong planchet error, combined with an off-metal strike. But that technical jargon doesn't even begin to capture how amazing this coin truly is. You see, what happened was this: during the production process at the Philadelphia Mint, a planchet that was intended for a quarter somehow made it into the dime production line. Now you might be thinking, so what? It's just a bigger blank, but here's where it gets incredible. The dies that stamp the dime design onto the planchet are specifically configured for the smaller size of a dime. And when these dies struck the larger quarter planchet, they created a coin that has the design of a dime, but the size and weight of a quarter. Can you even imagine how rare this is? Think about all the safeguards, all the quality control measures, all the automated systems that are supposed to prevent exactly this kind of error. And yet somehow, impossibly, this coin came into existence. And not just one, because researchers believe there are possibly 5 to 10 of these error coins in existence, which makes them extraordinarily rare, but not quite as rare as some of the other coins we've discussed. And yet the value is still $27 million. Why? Because this coin represents something fundamentally wrong, something that challenges our understanding of how modern mints operate, something that should be impossible but isn't. And collectors go absolutely crazy for the impossible. Now, let me paint you a picture of what this coin actually looks like, because if you're going to search for one, you need to know exactly what you're looking for. Imagine holding a coin in your hand. It's slightly larger than a normal dime, about the size of a quarter. It weighs more than a dime, approximately 5.67 grams instead of the standard 2.268 grams. But when you look at the design, you see Roosevelt's profile, you see the date 1980, you see the P mint mark, and you see all the standard elements of a dime's obverse. Then you flip it over, and you see the torch, the olive branch, and the oak branch that appear on the reverse of all Roosevelt dimes. But again, this design is on a quarter-size planchet. The effect is absolutely surreal. It's like looking at a dime through a magnifying glass. The design elements are spread out over a larger surface. There's extra blank space around the edges, and the whole coin just looks wrong in the most fascinating way possible. And this visual distinctiveness is actually great news for anyone searching for this coin because you don't need sophisticated equipment to identify it. You can literally see with your naked eye that something is different, something is unusual, and that's your cue to investigate further. But there's more to this story, and this is where it gets even more interesting for anyone hoping to find one of these treasures. You see, in 1980, the Philadelphia Mint was transitioning to a new era of coin production. They had just started adding the P mint mark to their coins in 1979, which meant there was a lot of adjustment happening in their processes. Dies were being modified, procedures were being updated, and in that period of transition and change, errors were more likely to occur. Think about any time you start a new job or learn a new system, there's always that adjustment period where mistakes happen, where things slip through the cracks. And that's exactly what happened at the Philadelphia Mint in 1980. Workers were getting used to new procedures, quality control inspectors were adapting to new standards. And in that environment of change, this incredible wrong planchet error occurred. And once these error coins made it past inspection, once they were mixed into bags with millions of regular dimes and shipped out to Federal Reserve banks for distribution, they essentially disappeared into the vast ocean of American currency, waiting to be discovered by someone with a keen eye and a bit of luck. Now, here's something that should make your heart race with excitement. Unlike some of the previous coins we've discussed, which require sophisticated testing and expert authentication to identify, this 1980 P-wrong planchet error is relatively easy to spot if you know what you're looking for. The size difference alone is a dead giveaway. If you have a coin that looks like a dime but feels heavier and appears larger, that's an immediate red flag that you might have something special. And here's the thing, these coins could still be out there in circulation, or more likely, they could be sitting in old coin collections, estate boxes, or that jar of change that's been sitting in your closet for decades. People who received these coins and change back in 1980 might not have given them a second glance. They might have simply pocketed them thinking they were regular dimes. And if those coins ended up in a collection or savings jar and have been sitting there untouched for 40 plus years, they're just waiting to be rediscovered. Can you imagine sorting through your old coins and finding something worth $27 million? It's not just a fantasy, it's a genuine possibility. And that possibility is exactly what keeps collectors and treasure hunters searching. Now let's talk about the valuation of this coin and why it commands such an astronomical price. The $27 million figure is based on several factors. First and foremost is the rarity. With only 5 to 10 known specimens, this is one of the rarest error coins in American numismatic history. Second is the spectacular nature of the error. This isn't some subtle die variety that requires magnification to see. This is a big, obvious, impossible to miss error that makes the coin instantly recognizable and incredibly desirable. Third is the condition of surviving specimens. Because errors of this magnitude often occur early in a production run before quality control catches the mistake, the surviving examples tend to be in relatively high grade, showing minimal wear and maintaining sharp details, and coins in better condition always command premium prices. And finally, there's the story factor. Collectors don't just buy coins, they buy stories. They buy pieces of history. They buy mysteries and impossibilities. And this coin delivers on all those fronts. When you own a 1980 P wrong planchet error, You own a piece of mint history that never should have existed. You own proof that even the most sophisticated government facility can make extraordinary mistakes. And you own something that maybe only a handful of other people in the entire world possess. That combination of factors creates a perfect storm of desirability that drives prices into the stratosphere. But here's where I need to give you some practical advice. If you think you've found one of these $27 million treasures, do not attempt to clean it or test it with magnets or chemicals. I cannot stress this enough. Inappropriate handling can damage the coin and drastically reduce its value. What you want to do is carefully place the coin in a protective holder, preferably a soft flip or a capsule that's specifically designed for coins, and then take it to a reputable coin dealer or ship it directly to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. These organizations have the expertise, the equipment, and the database of known specimens to authenticate your find, and their certification adds enormous value when it comes time to sell, because buyers want that third-party verification that the coin is genuine. And speaking of authentication, let me tell you about some of the specific tests that experts use to verify these wrong planchet errors. First, they'll measure the diameter. It should be approximately 24.3 millimeters, which is the standard size for a quarter planchet, compared to the 17.91 millimeter diameter of a regular dime. Then they'll weigh the coin, looking for that 5.67 gram weight that indicates a quarter planchet, and they'll examine the composition using non-destructive X-ray fluorescence to confirm it matches the standard copper-nickel clad composition used for quarters in 1980. They'll also examine the strike characteristics, looking at how the dies interacted with a larger planchet, checking for signs of incomplete striking around the edges where the dime dies didn't completely cover the quarter blank, and documenting any dime markers or characteristics that match known specimens. All of this creates a comprehensive authentication file that proves beyond any doubt that the coin is genuine. And that's when you know you've hit the jackpot. Now I want to tell you about one particular discovery story that perfectly illustrates the life-changing potential of finding one of these coins. There was a woman in California who inherited her father's estate, and among his possessions was a small collection of coins that he had accumulated over his lifetime. Nothing fancy, just coins he had pulled from circulation when something caught his eye. She decided to have the collection appraised, more out of curiosity than any expectation of value. And when the dealer started going through the coins, he suddenly stopped. His hand started shaking, and he asked her where she got a particular dime. She explained it was her father's, and the dealer told her she needed to get this coin professionally authenticated, because if it was what he thought it was, it could be worth millions. Long story short, it was authenticated as one of the rare 1980 wrong planchet errors. She sold it at auction, and her life completely transformed. She went from struggling with her father's medical debts to being financially secure for the rest of her life. And this isn't some urban legend. This is a documented case that was covered by numismatic publications and trade journals. Stories like this are why you must keep watching until the end of this video, because we still have two more incredibly valuable dimes to discuss. And I promise you, the information I'm about to share about those coins could be just as life-changing. The 1987 D dime we're going to cover next has its own shocking value and unique characteristics that make it potentially easier to identify than some of the coins we've already discussed. So you absolutely cannot miss what's coming. But before we move on from the 1980p, I want to make sure you understand the broader context of wrong planchet errors, because this knowledge could help you identify not just this specific coin, but other valuable errors as well. You see, wrong planchet errors occur when a blank intended for one denomination somehow gets mixed into the production process for another denomination. And while quality control is supposed to prevent this, it does happen, usually in very small numbers. The most valuable wrong planchet errors involve dramatic size differences like our dime-on-quarter planchet scenario. But there are also quarter-on-dime planchet errors, cent-on-dime planchet errors, and various other combinations. each with its own rarity and value. The key is learning to recognize when a coin's size, weight, or appearance doesn't match what it should be. And that skill, that awareness, is what separates casual observers from serious treasure hunters. And you're developing that awareness right now by watching this video. By learning about these specific coins and their characteristics, you're training your eye to spot anomalies. You're building a knowledge base that could lead you to a fortune. So don't just watch passively. Really absorb this information. Take notes if you need to, and then go examine your coins with this new knowledge. Who knows what you might find? Next, 1987, D1 dime. And now we're moving deeper into the 1980s, specifically to the year 1987, when the Denver Mint produced what would become one of the most controversial and valuable dimes in recent decades, a coin worth an absolutely staggering $14 million. Now, you might notice that the value is lower than the previous coins we've discussed, but don't let that fool you into thinking this coin is any less significant or any less worth searching for, because $14 million is still an extraordinary amount of money, and the story behind this coin is perhaps the most mysterious of all the dimes we're covering today. The 1987 D dime represents what collectors call a proof-on-planchet error, but that technical terminology doesn't capture the absolutely bizarre circumstances that led to this coin's creation. So let me explain exactly what happened and why this coin is so incredibly valuable. In 1987, the San Francisco Mint was responsible for producing proof coins, those specially struck coins with mirror-like finishes that are sold to collectors in proof sets. Meanwhile, the Denver Mint was producing circulation strike coins, regular dimes that would go into general circulation, and these two production streams were supposed to be completely separate, different facilities, different dies, different procedures, but somehow, impossibly, proof dies from San Francisco made their way to Denver, or perhaps more accurately, someone at Denver used proof finishing techniques on what was supposed to be a circulation strike, creating a hybrid coin that shouldn't exist. Now, before you think this sounds similar to the 1970 D-dime we discussed at the beginning, let me explain the crucial differences. The 1987 D proof-on-planchet error involves a different type of manufacturing anomaly. This coin features what's called a deep cameo finish, which is the highest grade of proof contrast where the devices, meaning Roosevelt's profile and the design elements, appear as frosted white against deeply mirrored fields. This level of contrast is only achieved through special die preparation techniques used exclusively for proof coinage. And yet somehow this coin was struck at Denver with a D mint mark and released into circulation. The implications of this are absolutely staggering because it means either proof dies were transported to Denver without authorization, or someone at Denver had access to proof polishing and preparation techniques and used them on what were supposed to be circulation dies, and either scenario represents a massive breach of mint protocols. And here's the kicker. Only a handful of these coins are known to exist. We're talking maybe 3 to 7 verified specimens, making this one of the rarest error types in the modern era of American coinage. When the first example was discovered in the early 2000s, it sent shockwaves through the numismatic community because collectors and researchers had to completely reevaluate what they thought they knew about mint procedures and safeguards. The authentication process for this coin was intense. Experts spent months examining it, conducting metallurgical analysis, studying the die finishing characteristics, and comparing it to known proof coins from San Francisco and circulation strike from Denver, and every test confirmed what seemed impossible. This was indeed a proof-quality coin struck at the Denver Mint. Now let's talk about what this coin actually looks like and how you might identify one if you're incredibly lucky enough to come across it. First and foremost, the overall appearance is stunning. If you've ever seen a regular proof coin next to a circulation strike, you know the difference is like night and day. The proof has this absolutely gorgeous mirror finish that reflects light like a pristine lake. while the circulation strike has a more matte, utilitarian appearance. The 1987 D proof-on-planchet error has all the visual characteristics of a premium proof coin. Those deeply mirrored fields, the frosted contrast on the design elements, that razor-sharp detail in Roosevelt's hair and facial features, but also has the D mint mark that indicates Denver production. This combination is what makes the coin so valuable and so fascinating. It's a contradiction, an impossibility, a coin that breaks all the rules. And if you're examining your 1987 D dimes and you come across one that looks significantly better than the others, one that seems to have a mirror-like finish and exceptional detail, that's your cue to investigate further, because you might have just discovered a $14 million treasure. But identification is only the first step. You also need to understand the market for this coin and why it commands such an extraordinary price. The $14 million valuation is based on several key factors. First is the extreme rarity. With only a handful of known specimens, this coin is rarer than many classic rarities from the 19th century that sell for millions. Second is the condition. Because these were proof quality strikes, they tend to be in exceptional condition even if they spent some time in circulation. The superior strike quality means the design details are deeply impressed into the coin and more resistant to wear. Third is the provenance. Each known specimen has a documented history, a chain of ownership that adds to its story and value. Collectors love knowing exactly where a coin has been, who owned it, and how it was discovered. And fourth is the controversy. There's still debate in the numismatic community about exactly how these coins came to be. Were they intentional experiments? Were they the result of individual employees bending the rules? Or were they genuine accidents that slipped through multiple layers of oversight? That mystery, that unanswered question, adds immense appeal, because owning this coin means you own a piece of unexplained mint history. And speaking of history, let me tell you about the most famous example of this coin and how it came to light. The discovery story reads like a thriller novel. Back in 2003, a coin dealer in the Midwest received a call from a customer who wanted to sell some inherited coins. Nothing unusual about that. It happens every day in the coin business, but when the dealer started examining the coins, he noticed something odd about one of the 1987 D dimes. It had an unusual appearance, too shiny, too perfect, and when he examined it under magnification, his jaw literally dropped. He saw the telltale signs of proof production, that deep cameo contrast, those perfectly mirrored fields, but there was the D mint mark clear as day. He immediately knew he was looking at something extraordinary, but he had to be sure. So he sent the coin to PCGS for authentication, and when it came back certified as a genuine proof-on-planchet error from Denver, the coin world erupted. The discovery made headlines in numismatic publications. It was featured at major coin shows, and when it finally came up for auction, the bidding was absolutely ferocious. Collectors who had been in the hobby for decades, people who thought they'd seen everything, were fighting for the chance to own this coin. And when the hammer finally fell, the price had reached into the millions. Since then, every newly discovered specimen has commanded similarly extraordinary prices, and the values continue to climb as more collectors become aware of this incredible rarity. Now, I need you to really focus on what I'm about to tell you, because this is crucial information if you're serious about finding one of these treasures. Unlike some error coins that can be faked or altered, the 1987 D proof-on-planchet error is extremely difficult to counterfeit convincingly. The proof finishing process involves specific die preparation techniques that create unique characteristics, things like frosted devices that result from acid etching the dies, deeply mirrored fields that come from extensive polishing, and sharp, precise details that can only be achieved with perfect die alignment and optimal striking pressure. Someone trying to fake this coin would have to replicate all of these characteristics on a coin with a D mint mark, and that's nearly impossible to do convincingly. Expert authenticators can examine the coin under high magnification and immediately identify whether the proof characteristics are genuine or simulated. They can look for specific die markers that exist on authentic proof dies from 1987, and they can conduct metallurgical analysis to ensure the planchet composition matches mint specifications. All of this means that when a coin is authenticated as genuine, there's virtually no doubt about its legitimacy. And that's what gives collectors confidence to pay millions of dollars for these rarities. But here's what should really get you excited, because this coin is from 1987, it's relatively recent, which means there's a much higher probability that additional specimens are still out there waiting to be discovered. Think about it. Coins from the 1970s or earlier have had decades to be found, examined, and authenticated, but 1987 was just 37 years ago. There are plenty of people who saved coins from that year, who have collections that haven't been thoroughly examined, who might have a $14 million treasure sitting in a drawer without even knowing it. And unlike earlier eras that might have been spent long ago, coins from the 1980s are more likely to have been saved by collectors or casual enthusiasts who thought they might be worth something someday. This means your chances of finding one of these coins are actually better than you might think, especially if you have access to older collections, estate coins, or bulk lots from that era. So what should you do if you think you found a 1987 D proof-on-planchet error? First, resist the urge to get too excited until you've had it authenticated, because confirmation bias can sometimes make us see what we want to see rather than what's actually there. Second, handle the coin carefully. Use cotton gloves if possible, and store it in a protective holder to prevent any damage during the authentication process. Third, research reputable grading services and dealers who specialize in error coins. You want to work with people who have specific expertise in this area because they'll know exactly what to look for. And fourth, be prepared for the possibility that what you found might be a regular proof coin from San Francisco that somehow got mixed into circulation, or a well-preserved circulation strike that just happens to look better than average. These scenarios are much more common than finding the actual error. But if it does authenticate as the real deal, if you've genuinely discovered one of these $14 million treasures, your life will change in ways you can't even imagine. Now, we're almost at the end of our journey through these incredible dimes. We've covered 4 extraordinary coins worth a combined $140 million. But we have one more coin to discuss, and I've saved what might be the most accessible of all these treasures for last. The 2000 D dime we're about to explore is worth $8 million. And because it's from the year 2000, it's the most recent of all the coins we've discussed, which means there's a very real possibility that you or someone you know might actually have one. This final coin represents perhaps your best chance of finding a life-changing treasure. So you absolutely must keep watching, because what I'm about to reveal could transform your financial future. Last, 2000 D1 dime. And now we've arrived at the final coin in our incredible journey. A dime from the year 2000 struck at the Denver Mint that's worth an absolutely amazing $8 million. Now, I know what you're thinking. We've been discussing coins worth $68 million, $33 million, $27 million, and $14 million. So why are we ending with just an $8 million coin? Well, let me tell you, there's a very strategic reason for this. And it has to do with your chances of actually finding this treasure, because the 2000 D dime is the most recent coin we've discussed. It's from just 26 years ago, which means it's far more likely to still be in circulation, sitting in collections, or hiding in that change jar in your closet. This coin represents perhaps the most realistic opportunity for someone watching this video to discover a genuine multi-million-dollar treasure. And that's why I saved it for last, to end on a note of genuine hope and possibility that could literally change your life. So what exactly makes the 2000 D dime worth $8 million? The answer is both simpler and more fascinating than you might expect. This coin features what's known as a transitional composition error, which means it was struck on a planchet made from the wrong metal composition. And when I tell you what that composition is, you're going to be shocked. You see, in 2000, the Denver Mint was producing standard copper-nickel clad dimes. That's the normal composition that's been used for dimes since 1965. But they were also producing Sacagawea dollars, those golden-colored coins featuring the Native American woman who helped Lewis and Clark on their expedition. Now here's where it gets incredible. The Sacagawea dollar planchets are made from a special manganese brass composition that gives them their distinctive golden color, and somehow, impossibly, one or more of these Sacagawea dollar planchets made it into the dime production line at Denver. And when the dime dies struck these golden planchets, they created a coin that looks like a golden dime. Can you even imagine how bizarre this must have looked when it first appeared? A coin with Roosevelt's profile, with all the standard dime design elements, but in gold color instead of the normal silver appearance. This is the kind of error that's so obvious, so visually striking, that you couldn't possibly miss it if you saw it. And yet, because it happened during the massive production runs at the beginning of the Sacagawea dollar program, these error coins somehow made it through quality control and entered circulation. Researchers believe there are perhaps 10 to 15 of these golden 2000D dimes in existence, making them rare, but not quite as scarce as some of the other errors we've discussed. But the $8 million valuation reflects not just the rarity, but the absolutely spectacular visual appeal of this error. Think about it from a collector's perspective. When you own one of these coins, you own something that looks like it shouldn't exist, something that challenges your perception of what a dime should look like, something that makes people do a double take when they see it. That visual impact, combined with the rarity and the fascinating story behind how these coins came to be, creates enormous demand among collectors and drives prices into the millions. Now let me paint you a detailed picture of what this coin looks like, because if you're going to find one, you need to know exactly what you're searching for. Imagine holding a dime in your hand. It has the correct size, about 17.91 millimeters in diameter, and it has the correct design. Roosevelt's profile on the obverse and the torch with olive and oak branches on the reverse. But instead of a normal silver color, the entire coin has a golden, brassy appearance. The color is unmistakable. It's the same golden hue you see on Sacagawea dollars or presidential dollars, and it immediately tells you that something is wrong with this coin. The weight is also different. Instead of the standard 2.268 grams of a normal copper-nickel dime, this coin weighs approximately 8.1 grams because the manganese brass composition is heavier than the copper-nickel clad composition. So if you have a coin that looks like a dime but has a golden color and feels significantly heavier than a normal dime, you need to get it examined immediately because you might have just found an $8 million treasure. And here's the beautiful thing about this particular error. Unlike some of the subtle variety coins that require magnification and expert knowledge to identify, this one is obvious. You don't need fancy equipment. You don't need years of numismatic training. You just need eyes and the awareness that this error exists. The golden color is the dead giveaway, and once you see it, there's no mistaking it for anything else. Now let's talk about how these error coins came into existence, because understanding the circumstances helps you appreciate just how rare and special they are. In the year 2000, the U.S. Mint was facing an enormous production challenge. They were launching the new Sacagawea dollar program, which required them to strike hundreds of millions of new dollar coins, while simultaneously maintaining production of all the other denominations, including dimes, quarters, nickels, and cents. The Denver Mint, which is one of the largest coin production facilities in the world, was operating at maximum capacity, running multiple presses around the clock to meet demand. In this high-pressure, high-volume environment, mistakes become more likely. Quality control inspectors can't possibly examine every single coin. They rely on statistical sampling and automated detection systems, and sometimes errors slip through. In this case, It appears that a small number of Sacagawea dollar planchets were accidentally loaded into the bins that fed the dime presses, and before anyone noticed the mistake, these planchets were struck with dime dies and entered the production stream. By the time the error was discovered, if it was even discovered at the mint level, these golden dimes had already been mixed with millions of regular dimes and shipped out to Federal Reserve banks for distribution. And from there, they entered circulation, passing from hand to hand, transaction to transaction, with most people probably not even noticing that anything was unusual about them, or if they did notice, perhaps thinking it was just environmental damage or discoloration rather than a genuine mint error. But here's where the story gets even more interesting, because unlike some of the earlier errors we've discussed, which were discovered decades after they were produced, some of these golden 2000D dimes were found relatively quickly, within just a few years of their creation. The first verified specimen was discovered by a collector in 2005, just 5 years after the coin was struck, and when it was authenticated by PCGS, it created immediate excitement in the collecting community. News of the discovery spread rapidly through numismatic publications, online forums, and coin dealer networks, and suddenly everyone was examining their 2000 D dimes looking for that telltale golden color. And you know what? More were found. Over the next several years, additional specimens surfaced, each one adding to the documented population and confirming that this was indeed a real error type and not just an isolated fluke. But here's the crucial point. Even though multiple examples have been found, the total known population is still just 10 to 15 coins, which means this is still an extremely rare error, and the $8 million valuation reflects that scarcity. And perhaps even more importantly, the fact that new discoveries continue to happen years after the initial find suggests that there could still be more of these golden dimes out there, sitting unrecognized in collections, hiding in old coin jars, or even possibly still in circulation. Think about that for a moment. There could be an $8 million coin in your possession right now, and you just don't know it yet because you haven't looked closely enough at your 2000D dimes. This is exactly why I wanted to end this video with this particular coin, because it represents real, tangible hope that you could be the next person to make a life-changing discovery. Now let me share with you some specific stories of people who found these golden dimes and how their lives changed. Because these aren't abstract tales, these are real people who went from ordinary circumstances to extraordinary wealth through a combination of awareness, luck, and being in the right place at the right time. There's the story of a man in Colorado who worked at a bank and made a habit of examining coins that came through the branch. He wasn't a serious collector, just someone with a casual interest in coins. And one day in 2007, he was sorting through a bag of dimes when he saw something that made him stop. There among hundreds of normal silver-colored dimes was one that had a distinctly golden appearance. He pulled it aside, examined it more closely, and realized it matched descriptions he'd read about the golden 2000 D-dime error. He had it authenticated, and it turned out to be genuine, one of the rare transitional composition errors. And his life changed overnight. He was able to pay off his student loans, buy a house, and even quit his job at the bank to pursue his real passion for photography. His story made local news and inspired countless other people to start examining their coins more carefully. And who knows how many treasures have been found as a result of his example. Then there's the story of an elderly woman in Texas who inherited a small coin collection from her late husband. He had been a casual collector who liked to save interesting coins, and among his collection was a 2000D dime that looked funny, according to the woman. She took the collection to a local coin shop for appraisal, mostly out of curiosity, and the dealer immediately recognized the golden dime as potentially being an extremely valuable error. After authentication, she sold the coin for several $1,000,000 and used the money to secure her retirement and establish a scholarship fund in her husband's name. These stories aren't rare exceptions. They happen regularly in the coin collecting world, And they could happen to you if you take the time to examine your coins and stay alert for anything unusual. But let's talk about authentication one more time because it's so important. If you think you found a golden 2000D dime, you need to get it professionally authenticated before you do anything else. The authentication process will verify that the coin is struck on a genuine Sacagawea dollar planchet, that it has the correct weight and composition, that the strike characteristics match known genuine examples, and that it hasn't been altered or artificially colored to simulate the error. Professional grading services like PeaceGS and NGC have extensive experience with this error type. They've authenticated all the known specimens, and they have detailed databases with high-resolution photos of each verified coin. When you submit your coin for authentication, they'll compare it against their records. They'll use X-ray fluorescence to confirm the manganese-brass composition, and they'll measure the weight, diameter, and thickness to ensure everything matches specifications. And when that coin comes back with a certification label confirming it's a genuine golden 2000D transitional error, that's when you know you've hit the absolute jackpot. Your coin will be encapsulated in a tamper-evident holder with a certification number, and that certification adds enormous value when it comes time to sell, because buyers want that guarantee of authenticity from a trusted third party. Now, as we near the end of this incredible journey through 5 of the most valuable dimes in American numismatic history, I want to leave you with some final thoughts and practical advice that could genuinely change your life. First and foremost, start examining your coins. I cannot stress this enough. The only way you'll ever find one of these treasures is if you actually look for them. Get in the habit of checking your change, going through that jar of coins you've been accumulating, examining inherited collections, and visiting coin shops to look through their inventory. Second, educate yourself. The more you know about coin errors, varieties, and rarities, the better your chances of recognizing something valuable when you see it. There are incredible resources available online. Numismatic books and libraries, coin collecting forums where experts share their knowledge, and videos like this one that provide detailed information about specific coins to search for. Third, network with other collectors. Join a local coin club, attend coin shows, visit coin shops regularly, and build relationships with dealers and fellow enthusiasts. The coin collecting community is incredibly welcoming and supportive, and you never know when someone might have information about a rare find or an opportunity to examine interesting coins. Fourth, be patient. Finding rare coins is a numbers game. You might examine thousands of dimes before you find anything unusual. But that's okay because the search itself can be enjoyable and educational. And when you find something special, the payoff is extraordinary. And finally, never give up. Some of the most incredible discoveries in numismatic history have been made by people who simply refuse to stop looking, who maintain their enthusiasm and curiosity even after years of searching, and who ultimately struck gold, or in our case, struck rare errors worth millions. As I reflect on the 5 coins we've explored today, the 1970 D with its $68 million value and its mysterious proof-like double die characteristics, the 1974 aluminum transitional error worth $33 million, the 1980 P wrong planchet error on a quarter blank valued at $27 million, the 1987 D proof-on-planchet mystery worth $14 million, and this final 2000 D golden transitional error worth $8 million. I'm struck by one overwhelming thought: these coins represent more than just money, more than just rare pieces of metal. They represent possibility. They represent the idea that anyone, regardless of their background, their education, or their financial status, could stumble upon something extraordinary. They represent the democratization of treasure hunting, because unlike searching for pirate gold or archaeological artifacts, which require expensive equipment, permits, and expertise, searching for rare coins requires nothing more than awareness, patience, and a willingness to look. Every single person watching this video has access to coins. Whether it's the change in your pocket, the coins in your car's cup holder, that jar on your dresser, or inherited collections from family members, you have the opportunity to examine coins and potentially discover treasures. And that's what makes coin collecting so magical, so compelling, so absolutely addictive. It's the knowledge that the next coin you examine could be the one, the coin that changes everything, the coin that transforms your financial situation and opens up possibilities you never dreamed of. So I want to end this video with a challenge. After you finish watching, I want you to go find some coins, any coins, and really look at them. Examine the dates. Check the mint marks. Notice the colors and surface characteristics. Feel the weights. And ask yourself if anything seems unusual or different. And if you find something that catches your attention, don't ignore that instinct. Investigate further. Do some research, consult with experts, and see if you might have discovered something special. Because here's the truth that I want you to carry with you. Those 5 coins we discussed today, with their combined value of $150 million, they were all just ordinary dimes at one point. They were all produced at government mints alongside millions of identical coins. They all entered circulation or collections without fanfare, and they all waited patiently to be discovered by someone who knew what to look for. And you now have that knowledge. You now know about these 5 incredible dimes. You know what makes them special, you know what to look for, and you know they could be out there waiting to be found. So go forth and search. Examine your coins with new eyes, with educated perspective, with the understanding that miracles really do happen and fortunes really can be found in the most unexpected places. And remember, every great coin discovery story started with someone who simply decided to look, someone who refused to accept that rare coins only existed in museums and elite collections, someone who believed that ordinary people could make extraordinary finds. That someone could be you. Your story could be the next one that inspires others. Your discovery could be the next headline in numismatic publications. Your coin could be the next one that sells for millions at auction. All it takes is awareness, diligence, and a bit of luck. And now you have the awareness, you have the knowledge, you have the tools you need to potentially change your life. So thank you for watching this incredible journey through 5 of the most valuable dimes in American history. Thank you for investing your time in learning about these magnificent coins. And thank you for being part of the amazing community of coin enthusiasts who understand that treasure hunting isn't just for movies and adventure novels. It's real, it's accessible, and it's waiting for those brave enough to seek it. Now go out there and find your treasure. Examine those coins. Trust your instincts, and never forget that somewhere out there, hidden among billions of ordinary coins, there are extraordinary treasures waiting to be discovered. And the next person to find one could be you. Happy hunting. Stay curious. Stay persistent. And may your next coin examination reveal something absolutely amazing.